What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Pickleball Connection podcast. I'm Danea.
And I'm Barrett.
And we're stoked to be hanging out with you guys today. Today, we're going to be doing an episode that we like to call CTN, which is Cruise the News. This is where we look at all the latest pickleball news, things that are happening, and even some rec play scenarios. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's hop right into it today. Wasting no time, we are going to talk pickleball serve controversies. So I'm not sure if any of you tuned in to the event that was held, the PPA event, the pro event that was held in Las Vegas. But there were some questionable, I saw a lot of questionable calls when it came to people serving. And especially with a few pros in particular that got called for service faults. But what we wanted to go into this because I see in the pickleball forums online, everyone's talking about what are the differences between pro serves and regular serves, and why is it legal, and how are they allowed to do that? And so you guys probably, if you follow pro pickleball, know who I'm about to talk about, but Dekel Bar is this 6'5" Israeli giant man, and he has probably the most powerful serve on the professional pickleball association tour. And allegedly, I don't know this to be true, but what I have heard is that he got called like 8 or 9 times by the ref in this last tournament for a questionable serve. Big issue I have with this is, there's really no penalty if you get called for a questionable serve. You just serve over. Like in any other sport, that should be a fault. I think that should be something where you lose a point. And I think that we got to change this, because if there's no issue, then...
Well, and let's maybe talk about the issue, because people might not know. So like the serving rule right now for pros, if you guys aren't aware, is you're not supposed to contact the ball with your paddle above your hip.
Yeah, it's like technically your waist, but there's some ambiguity on what waist means, because in the definition of a waist can be anywhere from the top of your hip up to your navel.
Right.
So that's where it creates some ambiguity.
But then they were trying this out where you weren't allowed to drop the ball above your hip.
Right. So the PPA tour, they started to implement this rule where you basically had to release the ball below your hip. You couldn't release the ball here. You couldn't throw the ball up in the air.
Whereas in this past tournament, if you're watching Dekel serve, he's
throwing the ball. He's already 6'5", and he's throwing the ball up probably to his head height, getting on his tippy toes, and as the ball's falling, making contact somewhere near his belly button. But it just looks illegal when you watch it. You and I were watching one of the matches, and I was like, that can't happen.
And it was confusing for me, because I was like, wait, are they allowed to toss the ball up now? Like, I didn't know that they were allowed to do that now.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the big issues is that they keep changing the serve rules.
So things have changed multiple times, and it's really confusing. And then what's hard is I feel like some refs call things and some don't.
Right. And like I mentioned, I feel like there's no real penalty. Like if you get called, you serve over. So we have to do a better job at enforcing this. This is, people talk all the time about legitimizing the sport of pickleball. But if we can't figure out some basic serve rules and how to enforce them, that's an issue for us as this sport continues to grow. So
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I know obviously the PPA knows this is a big deal because there's been so many, you can't do this, they keep adding things. So they know it's an issue. Um, but I mean, me watching that tournament back, I was like, dude,
Yeah.
nobody else is serving like that.
Yeah. And if you guys watched our previous episode, if you haven't, definitely go listen to it. It's a good one. But if you watched our previous episode, we talked about how the PPA's already talking about trying to de-weaponize the serve. And they're basically we're experimenting with potentially putting a new line on the court where the ball couldn't travel a certain depth, into the receiving side. And so they're already talking about de-weaponizing the serve, yet they're changing these rules. And they clearly, like you mentioned, they clearly know it's an issue.
Yeah, they know it's an issue. And again, I think it's hard because right now refs are put in a position to try to see exactly where they're contacting the ball, and it's just hard. Like I can imagine even being a ref, like trying to watch a serve and where the ball is actually hitting the paddle. Is it their waist? Is it their belly button? Like that's just such a hard thing to even try to enforce. So I get both sides. I think it's hard for refs to enforce, but I think certain players are taking advantage of that.
Right. And I think, I was watching a match and Dekel and Zane were playing, I think maybe Jack Sock and Colin Schick. And there was some controversy because of his serve. And I can't remember if it was Jack or Colin, but one of them looked to the ref and was basically like, was that not illegal? And I saw Dekel motion to the other players, you can challenge it. He goes, you can challenge it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is then they're potentially losing their challenges if they get it wrong,
Right.
Obviously you can challenge the validity, but you only have so many challenges a game. So you don't want to throw them out at the beginning of a game. And I think that, I don't know, I think that there could even be that could be a separate challenge that doesn't count towards your other challenge. Maybe you only get one serve challenge a game. But when players are like, I don't know if I want to use this, but I clearly think this was wrong. Now players aren't challenging, refs aren't really doing anything about it, and players aren't getting penalized. So
yeah, and to your point, I think the penalization of it needs to be a thing because otherwise, what makes them not want to dance the line? If it's not getting called, and if players don't want to risk challenging it, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and I've seen stuff online, and I've talked to some different people that share this opinion, but a lot of people think the only real way to do this and enforce this is to go to the drop serve.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that we're going to get there? Like where pickleball is going to...
I don't know. It might at this point. I think seeing how much this is rippling and even this year, how many different things we've seen the PPA do, I do wonder if it will go to that point. I don't really know. I can't really say I 100% think that, but I think it's definitely a possibility because really it will put all of this to rest.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to open up the whole paddle conversation again because it's just, we maybe exhausted it on this podcast and then people are talking, but it's
a huge factor.
It's a huge factor, but it's comical to me how the UPAA or whatever the governing body now of the PPA and MLP, they're approving all these hot paddles that were previously delisted by the USAPA, the government of pickleball. And these paddles are getting hotter and yet they're trying to de-weaponize the serve. To me, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it feels a little fishy to me. It feels like maybe these paddles are getting approved because monetarily it makes sense for them. I don't know. I don't want to allegate, I don't want to I don't really know the reason, so I'm not going to speculate, but in that sense, maybe they have great intentions. But I just think it's interesting to me how these paddles are fine, yet now we're trying to now there's all these serve issues, I don't know, we got to figure it out. And I think the drop serve, I hope it doesn't go to that. I don't really like the drop serve. I feel like I can serve okay. You've tried it before too. It's not terrible, but I think the drop serve is a way better idea than adding a line to the court.
I agree.
And other options that we've talked about are regulating the ball.
And here's the thing, honestly, if I had to return Dekel serve, I probably would be even more inclined to be like, yeah, drop serve. Because the reality is I am not a pro, so I'm not dealing with the level of serve that they are.
I think one thing that's positive about the drop serve is that it does equalize the playing field a little bit. Like part of the reason Dekel serve is so deadly is because he's 6'5" or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So his navel is at like my chin, you know, like, I don't know. It's he can contact the ball a lot higher than Bobby Oshiro, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think it's just interesting that it does create a little bit of a disadvantage for people that are shorter, but everyone's going to have the same playing field if you go to the drop serve. It would take an adjustment for me.
Yeah, I think it would take adjustment for a lot of people.
But guys, let us know in the comments, what do you think is going to happen with the pickleball serve? Do you think we're going to end up going to a drop serve? Do you think that what does the Professional Pickleball Association need to do to start enforcing and regulating the serve? Or do you even think this is an issue? Maybe you don't think this is an issue. We'd also like to hear that feedback in the comments. Hey guys, real quick, we do want to briefly mention Selkirk backpacks. We really love the backpacks that Selkirk has put out. They're really functional, really versatile. They look really sharp. We use them when we play and we use them when we travel.
Actually, last time we were in the airport, we packed our Selkirk backpacks for basically our luggage, and the person behind us was like, whoa, like those are such cool backpacks, like it's awesome.
They're like, where'd you get them?
Yeah, it's just, they're super functional. They have a bunch of different sizes. I take stuff for work and mine and bring it to a coffee shop. I mean, they're awesome.
Yeah, guys, so if you're in the market for a backpack, there's all different sizes, all different colors. Head on over to selkirk.com and get yours today.
So this kind of brings me into our next topic. This was a post on a forum from somebody just like us who plays rec play. And they said, in open rec play, how do you go about telling a person their serve is illegal? Paddle above the waist, giving them power and excessive spin advantage? I don't want to start an argument. But fair point. This is something that, you know, even if it's at a smaller level, illegal serves are happening even in rec play. So, you know, I know that we've encountered maybe some of this, but I think that this is probably a really regular thing. Not everybody is really aware that their serves are illegal, especially if they haven't been playing that much. So what do you think? What's a good way to go about telling somebody in rec play that their serve is illegal?
You know, I've encountered this a couple times, like playing against people that maybe have questionable serves. I think it just depends on do you want to even address it? I think there's the side where, you know, it is just rec play. You're going to get a little better having to play like a harder serve. But if rec play is you're on a challenge court or you're trying to work your way up, or it's, you know, winner stays and then you risk having to wait. Like if there's more on the line, I think that's maybe a little different. But I did play against a team one time. This guy had a kind of a questionable serve, and actually his partner like stopped him like in between points and was like, hey man, like we should give them that. I think your serve was illegal. And he was actually dumbfounded. Like he didn't even know, like to your point, he didn't even know it was illegal. I think that would be really awesome if we had people that were integrous enough in, you know, partners can call their own partners. I know it's hard to do that when you want to win, but maybe you could say, you know, you could pause and you could say, hey man, or kind of address everyone on the court and say, hey, I thought my partner, you know, I thought Joe's serve was a little like questionable there. I don't know if you guys did, but I'm open to replaying the point. If you guys are, that would be a lot of integrity, I guess. But I don't know. What do you think?
So honestly, I feel like this really opened my eyes. A while ago, I posted on my platform, All Things Pickleball on Instagram, about a scenario like this and, you know, kind of opened it up to get feedback. And so many people commented, if I was doing something wrong, I would want to know. And it just went to show me, like, typically, I would say 98% of the time, people aren't trying to be malicious in rec play. Yeah, you have some like jerks out there, but like for the most part, people actually want to know the rules. And so that being said, after I read that, I was like, you know what? I do want to like help people learn the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is just rec play. Like I feel like I'm typically that person that I'm like, okay, whatever, it's rec play. It doesn't matter. But after kind of seeing everybody respond that way, or the majority of people respond that way, I kind of have made a new resolve in my mind. Like, man, I want to help people like actually learn the game. And people want to know, even like that guy in your example, he probably wants to know, and you don't even give people a chance if you don't even bring it up. So I think how you do it, you got to be like tactful and polite. And maybe it's something you say after the game, or maybe it's something you say, hey, just so you know, like that serve is illegal, and this is the rules for the serve. I think you can do it in a really polite way, but I've come to realize most people want the feedback, especially if they're doing something wrong.
Yeah. I think that's always a good time to bring it up, like after the game. I think
Mm-hmm.
people will feel more receptive. And I actually have brought it up once, and I've posed it like, go up to this person and say, hey, I don't know if you've ever thought about playing in a pickleball tournament, but if you choose to, here's some feedback. This might get called. Like if you're ever in a refereed match, just something to watch. And then that takes the pressure off of it. Like, oh, I don't really care that you did it here, but just something
Yeah.
to watch.
And this goes with really anything in the game, you guys, whether it's like volleying in the kitchen. I know people will step into the kitchen. I know people don't all the time know the rules or know that they're even breaking a rule. And so, again, I think you can always do it in a really nice way. But I've come to realize a lot of the time, people really want to know if they're doing something wrong. So,
Yeah, I was actually playing the other day. I don't know if I told you this, but I was playing the other day, and me and my partner had just won, and so we were waiting for the challenge court. We wanted to go challenge, and we're watching this game, and obviously, like I said, stakes are a little higher on the challenge court because you're kind of wanting to run the court, you're kind of wanting to stay on and not have to wait. And it was a really like close game. We were waiting for this game to finish, and one guy called a foot fault this on the opponent. The opponent like clearly in his mind stepped in the kitchen to volley or try to put a ball away, and he called it right away. But they got in like a pretty heated argument debate because he was adamant that he wasn't. I think that the hard thing about a foot fault is like you're not really looking at your feet and the ball at the same time. Like, so it's hard to really know, but you do have like a feel for where you are on the court. But that's another situation, like you said, like whether it's the serve or whether it's a foot fault, it does like kind of bother me a little bit because like I want the game to be played fairly, but you just kind of have to pick your battles. I mean, has it happened to you with the foot fault?
I
Have you
really
seen?
don't. I really don't look, to
Yeah,
be honest. Not in rec play.
you haven't like clearly seen someone in rec play step in the kitchen.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm really not that observant.
Yeah. I've definitely seen it a couple times, and like it makes me definitely. I think I don't know. I was going to ask. My follow up question was, what would bother you more, like someone stepping in the kitchen or having an illegal serve?
I mean, if I really saw them step in the kitchen, I would probably be more mad about that. Just 'cause I feel like that's more of an advantage. But
Yeah, see,
I
that's kind of
mean,
where I am too. But
either way, like I said, I think for the most part, if it's an accident, people probably just don't know. So, I think you can be nice about it, but I think you should call people out. It's kind of where I'm at. But I want to know what you guys think. If you see somebody that is either serving illegally, or maybe they're stepping in the kitchen, or breaking some type of pickleball rule, how do you guys handle that scenario, especially if it's rec play? Honestly, if you have graceful responses, I would love to hear them. Go ahead and comment them down below. We want to hear. Should we go to the next one?
yeah, let's go to the next one, guys. I think we also maybe briefly touched on this one in a previous episode, but we're going to go into this a little bit more because I have seen a lot of buzz about this topic in the kind of social world, and that is we're going to talk about the outrageous prices of pickleball tournament entry fees that are starting to pop up. So
Yeah, this is pretty crazy.
if you follow along in any of the forums, or maybe you're out there and you're considering or you are playing at the USAP Nationals event in Mesa, Arizona, people are kind of talking about this a lot. It's a $250 registration fee. Now, hold on. That doesn't count your events. That's just registration. That just gets you in the door as a player. And then it's an additional $65 per event. So let's say you go and you want to play singles and women's doubles. Well, that's an additional $65 per event. It's additional $130. So you're spending around $370 to $380 to play 2 events.
And of course, that's not including your food, your travel, your stay.
Right. And these are amateurs, like these are people. And the thing about this event is with the Nationals event, it's like a qualifying event. So you qualified for this event, yet all that really means is you qualified to pay all this money, and you could go 2 and out. I mean, I hope you don't go 2 and out if you're listening, but
it's an expensive
2 and out.
30 minutes.
And there's other tournaments as well that I've seen the prices kind of high on, but like, what do you think? Do you think these prices are just inflated and they'll come down? What do you think is going to happen? Like,
here's the thing. I love USA Pickleball. USA Pickleball, these prices are ridiculous. I really think that is so much money for a tournament.
I mean, I guess from a business perspective, it's like if people are going to pay for it, why not charge it? I guess. But here's my issue. If you're going to charge that much money, you better have a fantastic product.
Honestly, I was going to say there better be not one temporary court. There better not be one taped court. There better be plenty of clean bathrooms.
Yep, I was going to say.
There better be amazing food. Maybe you get a food ticket. Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Like for you to charge that much. Oh, and here's the other thing. Your bracket better be run very smooth.
Yeah. We're not wanting, because the thing about these big events is they typically have
crazy wait times
because they're overbooked. They book like 2,000, close to 2,000, players. And
so
yeah, that's my issue. If you're going to charge that much, and obviously I know like there's weather permitting, wait times can be, I get all that. I get it's not easy to run a tournament.
You better get like 5 t-shirts in your swag bag.
It's not easy to run a tournament of that like caliber. Size. But man, I just think for me, it's about the product. And I know I've played in some pretty expensive tournaments, like $150, $175 registration fees plus $50 an event. And I've had long wait times, porta potties.
Yeah.
Like, I understand we're trying to do our best. And the sport's growing fast. And I think facilities will continue to grow and get better and bigger. And I think we'll be good. We're probably just in the growing pains. But that's pretty ridiculous.
I think it's pretty ridiculous. And honestly, it makes me a little sad. Like, I remember when I started playing pickleball, you guys, like, I wasn't in like an incredible financial position. Like, I was building a lot, financially. And like, I would never have been able to afford a tournament at this cost when I first started playing. And I'm really thankful that the tournaments at that time, like, were like $80 to enter.
Yeah.
And it was like $80 and $20 for a t-shirt. I was like, sick. I can do that.
You know? Now you're forking out over $200 if you want to play in a bigger one.
And now the tournaments are just a lot more expensive. And, I feel really lucky that, we can do a tournament here and there and it's not going to break the bank. But I feel bad because it prices people out. And I understand that, like, there are some people that will pay. And I understand too, like, there's a bunch of local tournaments, which PS, if you were somebody who you're like, oh, I can't afford it, like, do a local tournament.
Yeah, local tournaments usually, I mean, sometimes you can find $40, like, it's not always expensive. But it's a bummer. We're talking about the big boys.
Yeah, but it's a bummer because, I mean, a big tournament really is a cool experience. And so it makes me a touch sad to think that you're pricing out some people. But again, if you're going to price it at that point, I would expect a premier product. And
all right, here's my question for the viewers, okay?
Yeah.
We're talking perfect tournament, immaculately run, beautiful venue. You're not playing on temporary nets. You have no tape lines. You have no wait times.
Your swag bag is awesome.
You have amazing swag bag. You have a food ticket, maybe even a beer or something, maybe even a drink ticket.
Ooh.
And it's an amazing tournament. I can't promise you that you're going to win it, but it's going to be a blast. How much would you pay for something like that? I want to know in the comments. What do you think's reasonable if it was a 10 out of 10 experience for a pickleball tournament? Because that, whatever that number is, should never be exceeded, because the idea that you're going to have this perfect tournament experience for everyone every time is probably pretty seldom.
What would you answer your own question with?
I mean, I don't know. I would still want it to be under $200.
Me too, dude. I would be like 150.
But like, I would also pay $200 or $250 if I knew all of those things were in place. The problem is I don't know. I've seen everything in between, so I would rather, if the tournaments are going to be how I've experienced them, I'd rather it be like $100. I mean, I know that they have costs to cover but anyways, let us know in the comments. Have you experienced these outrageous prices? And how much would you pay?
And if you're going to nationals, go ahead and put a comment below, because then we'll celebrate you for one, getting a ticket to get there, but two, we'll know how many people that watch this will be able to give us good feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, as always, let us know in the comments if you have any questions you want us to answer on future episodes. And I don't know how you're consuming this podcast, whether you're consuming it on YouTube or Spotify, but if you are, however you're consuming it, we'd really appreciate that you go ahead and rate this podcast for us. It really does help us immensely to grow this thing. We want to start having guests on. We want to just continue to grow this podcast. So if you're a fan, and if you can give us 5 stars, go ahead and make sure that you leave a rating and a review. We would greatly appreciate it.
Well, I think that's it.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on today's episode, and we will see you on the next one.